What a bounce-back performance. Your UCF Knights defeat North Carolina A&T 68-7 in a game that had a lot to be impressed about, while also looking at some minor things that might cause UCF some problems moving forward. But this is going to be a massively positive pod because UCF took care of business the way they should have. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I am your host, Sean Green. As always, we are presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. They finally put up the line, guys. And if you went on FanDuel at halftime, the line was 60.5. Me and Nick were looking at it. It was halftime. It was 40-0. And on FanDuel, the line was 60.5. And we said, do we do it? Do we place the wager on UCF? I hope you guys did, because if you would have placed it on the over, the 60.5 on UCF, that would have hit. UCF won by 61 points tonight. Make sure you always use FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, whenever you are making bets for your UCF Knights. And we are so appreciative they are the presenting sponsor of Charge On. Long night. It's going to be a long night for me. As many of you, if you guys watched our pregame show or our postgame show, you will know I'm fixing our light right now. That, I think, looks a little better. I'm just doing this in real time. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30 in the morning. I have a flight at 7:20, so I hope this is what we do it for, right? I'm up late, even though I have an early flight, because this is what we signed up for. And I appreciate you guys watching. Want to get this pod up. We always like to get our post-game pods up immediately, basically the morning after, so you guys can watch it before a very good NFL Sunday. I know everybody's excited for NFL, but in the pregame, me and Nick kind of discussed what we wanted to see out of this unit and what we wanted to see out of this team. And we said, look, like, you are playing in an inferior opponent. Like, that was something we all knew, we understood. And the thought process was you look around college football, especially today, and there was a lot of teams that were playing inferior opponents, and they were either decimating them or was a little bit closer than you would have liked. And I said, especially after last week, what you really want to see out of UCF is to come out here and really give it to them. Like, assert your dominance, be good in all three phases, and really not have any hiccups where you're starting to question, okay, is this season really going to be as bad as maybe we thought it was going to be? And in the pregame show, me and Nick gave our, if UCF gets to 40 points and also just limits North Carolina A&T to basically nothing, I think that would be a solid night. Like a 41-7 night, a 41-10 night. You kind of walk away from that type of game and say, you know what? UCF took care of business. They did it in a good fashion. You can feel confident going into the bye week that they're going to keep getting better. Well, the expectations kind of shot up after the first quarter, after it was 28-0. UCF really was playing good in all three phases. You had the Jaden Nixon kick return touchdown on the very first play. You had, UCF go drive down the field and score a touchdown on offense. You had the defense help them out. Just all three phases. All three phases were spot on early. We'll get into the defense a little bit. Definitely want to touch on Jaden Nixon. He was stellar tonight. I mean, I think I don't have the exact yardage. I think it's 250-something, yards in total for the game. He had 156 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He was extremely impressive tonight. And after what we saw from him last week, for him to come out and get that performance, kind of shows you what a back like that in this Scott Frost offense can do. A guy with that elusive of speed. A guy that can really get downhill, but also cut it to the outside. And we'll get to the offensive line and Miles in a second. But that is kind of something that he brings, and something that, we sit here and look at it and say, okay, Jaden Nixon is a dude that can really help this offense when maybe it's struggling a little bit. But UCF really put it on in that first quarter. Like I said, 28-0. Second quarter, it was a little tough sledding. They put up 12 points. but it wasn't awful. Again, I think the one thing that we took away was that final 56 seconds, they got the ball back. And Taven Jackson was just dialing on the short throws. And they got within field goal range after, one of the North Carolina A&T players kind of shoved Kylan Fox out of bounds shoved him after he was already out of bounds, which gave UCF another 15 yards to get within field goal range. But that was kind of it. For that first half, UCF goes up 40-0, and you kind of know at that point this game is over, and UCF did what they were supposed to. Now, we'll get a little bit into the second half. Obviously, a lot happened. Ja'Cory Brown took off for some pretty big runs. Stacey Gage got his first touchdown in college. Some players made some plays. But it was really about the first half. The second half was basically just salad dressing on a salad. The first half is where you get all of the things that you can learn. And I think let's talk quarterback, Taven Jackson. We talked about it on the postgame show. If you guys want to go back and watch that, more content for you guys, go check out the postgame show that me and Nick did after the game. Taven looked okay. Taven looked good. He looked really good at the start. The balls that he was throwing, they looked almost perfect. Timely. He was making the right reads. There was just, we kind of were going away from the game and we're like, how do we feel about the offense? How do we feel about Taven? Because if you looked really at the offense as a whole, the defense helped out the offense in a lot of situations. Jaden McDonald had an interception early that kind of gave UCF the ball, pretty close. The defense was just all over the football tonight. Rodney Laura got a touchdown after a strip sack in the end zone. So you kind of go back and you start looking at some of these plays and you're like, okay, where did UCF kind of get the ball? And let me see if I can kind of pull this up about how necessarily the drives happened, which I might not be, or here's the drives. So obviously the first one was the touchdown, obviously, that they took. We punted. I'm probably reading this wrong because it says interception fumble. Result touchdown. Got you. Oh, how they got it. See, guys, it's almost 2 a.m. So they had, I'm not even going to try and read this, but eye test. See, this last minute, I apologize. If you go back and you rewatch the game, UCF wasn't going on long touchdown drives. They were getting the ball. Either A, it was a chunk play, like a big time run, right? Or UCF was getting the ball in a favorable position. And I think, I'm not blaming Taven for that, obviously. Taven, early in the game, showed a lot of good things. There weren't any throws where you're like, ugh, that's bad. But as the time of the game kind of ticked along, there were some throws where you're like, okay, that's not necessarily great. That's going to need some improvement. And it was mainly on some of those long, deep balls, especially the balls in the middle. The balls, trying to throw it to the middle, Taven kind of struggled. Now, granted, again, you don't want to overreact, but you don't want to underreact to it. I think watching Taven, you kind of know what he is for the most part. I think he's not necessarily a runner. He can get you. He got 2 touchdowns on the ground, but he's not a speed guy. He's more elusive. He can kind of use his body to get to positions, and he showed a lot of that tonight. I think his short passing game is probably the best part of his game. He is extremely accurate when throwing those short intermediate routes, which, to be fair, I would rather him be really good at that than only good at deep balls. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather pick up these chunk plays off of 5 to 10 yard passes, and his deep balls aren't bad, right? The one to Dwayne Thomas, everybody watch that one. That was off by a hair. He put it in a great position where just Dwayne could get it, but it was off by a hair. Then you kind of look at the Marcus Burke one. I think that was his best throw of the night, and it didn't result in a completion because Marcus Burke jumped 2 yards early. I think that would have been dropped right in the bucket. There's one to Dylan Wade that he kind of overshot. There was a one to Wade in that he overshot. So I think it was an up and down night for Taven. But I think all in all, for the entire performance, he managed the game pretty well. And I think that's what you have to look at. You can't look at it necessarily from the throws he missed. I think those are going to be improved on. I think you can look at a lot of positives from Taven. But with that being said, you have to look at some of the things that he did and say, okay, if there was a tougher opponent, how would it be? Right? I'd give Taven like a B- performance, a B performance, which is good. He didn't play bad at all. And I don't want this to come off as like poo-pooing on Taven. I think he should be quarterback 1. I don't think Cam should be quarterback 1. But I also understand that there's probably going to be a competition. And if for some reason Cam Fancher is your starting quarterback for UNC, then clearly, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I would be surprised. But I think Taven showed a lot of good things tonight, and I think that's where you kind of can build on this. I think the last game against Jack State, there was just a ramp-up period of him like not starting and then getting in the game and kind of trying to figure it out. And then this game was more, started really fast, started really good, and then the offense kind of teetered as the game went along. And you kind of can see that. I mean, I'm not even going to try and go through the stats necessarily to look at it, but 204 passing yards, right? And Taven was 12 of 21 for 189 yards. Again, it kind of that tells you the story. If you looked at last week, he did a lot better throwing the football. He was a lot more accurate. UCF took a little bit more shots this game, which could also, play a factor into it. But no, I think all in all, Taven played good. And he just needs to be a little bit better on hitting some of those deep balls with a little bit more accuracy. But all in all, he played good. Now let's talk about again, positive and negative. The run game, I mean, the story tells you that UCF ran 356 yards. That's what it told you. And that was kind of like old UCF numbers. I mean, not necessarily that much, like close to that much, but 356 yards on the ground. But I think there is a cause for concern with the offensive line. I think there is kind of, we talked about it. I said I was intrigued the last 7 minutes of the last game, and if they could kind of bring it in to this game. And I think what we learned is there are some fear. I think the pass blocking is really exceptional. There's only one or two times where something breaks down, and you kind of are like, oh, that looked bad. But it's nowhere near where it was last year, where you were kind of just nervous every time there was a drop back if something was going to happen. I think the pass blocking is really good. I think the run blocking definitely needs some work. And not necessarily when it cuts to the outside. I'd say it's mostly when you run the up-the-gut runs, there's not really any holes. And Miles, when he gets the ball, he's almost having to work 10 times harder for anything he's getting on the ground. And I think that's where you kind of have a little bit of concerns moving forward. But with that being said, UCF ran the ball extremely well regardless of that. Jaden Nix had 156 yards. Jakari Brown in the second half ran for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was electric. Miles Montgomery, again, he had 8 carries for 35 yards, which doesn't jump off the page, but he was fighting. When he was in the game, he was fighting for his yardage. That's why I want to see them really try and create more lanes and more avenues for him to really get some chunk yardage. Stacey Gage got his first touchdown in college football, 5 carries for 30 yards. Davi Belfort got in the end of the game, 2 carries for 23 yards. So again, you have guys really making cases in the run game. Obviously, Jakari Brown's runs helped. And I think if you're a UCF fan calling for Jakari Brown to have his packages, it's coming. I think these first 2 weeks was something they weren't really going to insert the Jakari Brown packages because they don't want to put it on film. Why would you want North Carolina? Why would you want, Kansas State and the teams you're coming up and playing? Why would you want them to see the packages that you have for your backup quarterback? I think most teams will probably assume, hey, they've got this really electric runner on the bench. You can probably assume when he comes in the game, they're going to have something for him. But why would you throw that in for the first 2 weeks? Now, granted, you threw him in at quarterback because it was a blowout, and he kind of showed his running ability, which you can then assume that teams are going to kind of circle that just in case. Jakari Brown will play against North Carolina in some form or fashion because you saw tonight why he is dangerous. You could see why I've said for 9 months why I think he should play running back. Now, go in at running back and run because I think he's just very elusive. He's got some top-end speed. He knows how to hit certain holes. I think he'd be a really good weapon for UCF offense at running back. Do I like him as a quarterback that can come in and run this kind of option? Absolutely. I think he's extremely good at it. I'm just saying, you see what he can do just in small, like he did it against Iowa State last year. He couldn't throw against Iowa State, but boy, did he run all over him. So I think that's what kind of gets you excited about Ja'Cory Brown and his kind of, ability. And yeah, if you kind of can catch some defenses off guard and have him throw a pass here or there, I'm okay with it. Some of his short passes looked okay tonight. I just don't see him being a top-end quarterback for 4 quarters where you need a quarter. You need your quarterback to throw the football accurately. And that's where I think Taven kind of has that upper hand, because intermediate and deep, Taven is the better thrower of the football. And he can give you some running ability. Where Ja'Cory is a top-end runner, but maybe doesn't have as same accuracy throwing the football. But I think it'd be a really good package if he comes in as a runner and then catches some teams off guard and throws the ball and gets a big play. I think that can catch some teams off guard, and I think can really big, massive for UCF. Final thing on the offense. Again, another week where you saw a lot of players in the box score. You have how many players? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 8 different receivers. Let me rephrase that. 7 different receivers catching a ball. Marcus Burke had 4 targets, but no catches. I'm kind of out on Marcus Burke. I told you guys, Marcus Burke, when we signed him, I was not really fond of Marcus Burke. I think, and I said, if you're trying to make a determination between Wade and Charles and Marcus Burke, you take the young player. If it's that close, you take the young player, let him develop. Dwayne Thomas Jr., 3 catches, 68 yards, had that massive catch in the first quarter. He really had to reach out for that one. DJ Black, 3 catches, 27 yards. Again, those two are kind of separating themselves. I think we talked about in the postgame show. They kind of, you can clearly see our wide receiver 1 and 2. Wade and Charles, 3 catches for 18 yards. Chris Domerkant, 2 catches, 28 yards. Miles had a big catch. That should have been a touchdown, but it kind of got brought back. Carl Jenkins Jr. got a hold on it, so no touchdown there. Kylan Fox had that big catch at the end of the first half. Thomas Wadsworth got in there late. So I think that's kind of the positive that we're looking at in the pass game. Yes, was the pass game perfect? No. But with that being said, you're getting so many different guys involved. It's causing teams to kind of play you straight up. Like UCF in years past, you knew who was going to get the ball. You knew it was going to be Kobe Hudson or Javon Baker. And you're looking at it like, okay, we need to make sure we at the end of the day, we need to make sure we get these 2 guys kind of locked down when it comes to throwing the football. You knew UCF wanted to run the football, but you knew when they were going to throw, it was going to be to one of those 2 guys. I think now you look at it and you say, okay, UCF doesn't have maybe a pure number one receiver, but they have a bunch of guys that can make plays. And you're not seeing a bunch of dropping issues. You don't see a lot of that where that was a problem. When the ball's coming somebody's way, they're catching it, except Marcus Burke. And this is not a Marcus Burke hate podcast. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say Marcus Burke has had a struggle even in his career, but the last 2 games where the ball's coming his way, he kind of just doesn't catch it. I think he has a role in this offense, but I'd rather see Wade and Charles in there. So no, I think that's the offense. Liked what I saw. Definitely some room for improvement. I mean, 68 points, but again, some of that was from the defense. Some of it's good field position. Some of it is opponent. Like, I think there's improvement, and luckily you have a bye week because I think there's a lot to clean up still. But again, all in all, really good. Let's go defense. Boys and girls, here's what I'm going to say. I catch myself because every year we do this, every year. And I talked about it on the postgame show. I say, okay, this defense might be legit. And we do this same song and dance every year. And, I just don't want to do it anymore. But I'll say this about the defense. The defensive line, I take back what I said. They're deep. The defensive line is deep. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know if maybe I just got nervous about the game reps by some of the backups. Defensive tackle specifically, I think, is just really good. When you have Rodney Laura and Horace Lockett coming in as your second unit off of a first unit of RJ Jackson Jr. And, John Walker, that kind of gives you immense confidence that it's going to be hard. If you're going to run the ball, it's going to be hard up the middle. They're really getting pressure. I said on the postgame show, right now, Cole Kozlowski, for me, huge fan of Cole. He's making plays. This is 2 weeks. He flies to the football when he's out there. I think he got the opportunity to play this week with Lewis Carter kind of being suspended the one half. I don't think, granted, I might be wrong, but after it rained up in the press box, we couldn't really see much on the field. I don't think Lewis Carter played this game at all. They might have just sat him and let him rest, or I have no idea, but he's not in the stat sheet. He might have just sat. Isaiah Nixon had 6 tackles. And granted, some of these guys got in late, so they were able to really get some big-time plays. Like Sincere Edwards had 3.5 tackles for a loss. You kind of look at this defense. And again, let's look, if we just, and again, quarterback play the last 2 weeks has been rough. But, North Carolina A&T only threw for 40 passing yards. And they did, and this is where, the rushing, they had 160 rush yards. So there is that. But they ran it 51 times. They ran it 51 times for 160 yards. That's 3 yards a carry. You had the big run at the end. So I think the stats are a little skewed. This defense can be pretty good. I think again, the jury is still kind of out. But when you watch the defense, even last year playing the lower end opponents, there's times you're watching and you're like, I think this defense is good, but I see holes. Like there's times you're watching and the quarterback would complete a couple passes in your own and you're like, oh, okay, that could be an issue. Or they start running, better and you're like, okay, this shouldn't be happening. I think those are the moments, those are the things in the past couple of years where you're like, I think this defense is good, but I don't know. This one, I have a lot less worries. Yes, am I a little worried about sometimes how the run game can get a little bit leaky? Yes, there is a cause for concern there. For me personally. Maybe not for you, but for me. But really, besides that, I really love the depth of the team. I really love how they get kind of subbed out. I like the defense. I really do. I really do. They allowed an average yards per play of 3.2 yards. They were on the field for 36 minutes of the game. UCF's offense was only out there for 23 minutes. I don't know. They were 5 of 16 on third down. I don't know. And they allowed a touchdown with 3 minutes left. I don't know how you can really be upset about the defense. And again, they did what they were supposed to do against this type of opponent. Where do they go from here? You really need to play like this against the top tier opponents. If you do that, UCF is going to be more than fine and more than capable. Especially if they play like what they did on special teams today, that would also be really good. I think Alex Grinch is doing a lot of good things. And like I said, I'm a big fan of the defensive line. The linebackers are really good in my opinion. I think they're showing a lot of good things. And then again, the secondary. I don't think we talk about them enough. The secondary is doing what they're supposed to be doing. You don't really have a fear that when they're throwing the ball, they don't have wide open guys that you're like, whoa. And again, I want to emphasize again for the 5 millionth time, this is the opponent that you expect these things to happen with. North Carolina A&T was this opponent. It was the opponent you're supposed to beat up on. It was the opponent that you were supposed to kind of flex your muscles and show who you are. So none of this is shocking. And you're going to find out in a couple weeks against a middling North Carolina team. And Bill Belichick I'm a Patriots fan. The comment he made today, it's just gross. It's so stupid. So stupid. So I'm really hoping UCF can beat up on North Carolina. I'm really hoping. And I think they can. With this defense specifically, even if the offense struggles a bit, if this defense can play like that, I think UCF's in pretty good shape. I really do. But time will tell. Time is going to tell with all of this. But at the end of the day, UCF is 2-0. They go into the bye week 2-0. And they are 4 games. I know I'm going to say this, and some of you might get mad. They are 4 games away from a bowl game. 4 wins away from a bowl game. That's just a fact. Penalties, I want to just touch on the penalties. UCF had 6 penalties for 55 yards. Again, they were 5 for 5 in the red zone. I do want to point that out for one negative. We'll talk about a positive. I'm going to be honest. You got to clean up the penalties more. It can't happen. That's, I think, 14 in 2 weeks. So that's kind of a cause for concern a little bit, where you kind of just need to be, you can't have that many penalties and beat some of the teams you're going to face. I can't even remember some of them. Like, you have the John Walker hands to the face. That was hard. One of them, there's 2 of them came on the one drive. 30 yards came on the one drive that ended in a missed field goal, I think. But you have to clean that up. But the red zone, the 5 for 5 in the red zone does give you a little bit more confidence. I was a little nervous last week about the ability to score in the red zone. I think this week you've given me a little bit more confidence. But like I said, I think the run game just needs to improve a hair to make me kind of jump all the way. Because when you get in the red zone, you want to be able to run the ball effectively. And I think today it was Taven kind of getting out of the pocket, using that quarterback run option and taking the ball himself, which really helps. And I think adding those Jakari packages are going to be massive for this team when they get into the red zone. But today we'll take for 5 for 5. Today was a good day to do what they did. Besides that, guys, again, you won 68-7. There's not much nitpicking. I think I gave the honesty that we kind of need right now, which is the positives, where there's a lot of positives. You did everything you were supposed to do against this team. You flexed your muscles. You showed the world that you're not, I don't think you're the worst Big 12 team. And I think there's a lot of things that you could show that there was improvement from week 1 to week 2. And I think the improvement from week 2 to week 4. So going into week 3, that bye week, and then potentially going to playing North Carolina, I think you could show a lot of improvement. And that's what this season is about. It's about improving each week. For every team, you want to improve each week, but specifically for this team, you want to show that you are improving every week. You're not making the same mistakes. You're improving on the mistakes that you make from the week before. And if you keep doing that, a bowl game and maybe more than 6 wins, who knows, is potentially on the horizon for you. But it's going to take it day by day, game by game, and they took care of business, going now 2-0 in their first 2 games, heading into the bye week. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please like, subscribe, comment, share, do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Let us know, what do you think about this butt whooping? 68-7. Again, it's something UCF is supposed to do, but were you surprised? Were you surprised UCF put up 68? I sure as hell was. I was hoping just 40. Let us know down in the comment section below. And as always, we are presented by FanDuel. Listen, no UCF football next week, but you have NFL happening tonight. It already started technically last Thursday, but put all your wagers in on FanDuel, all your college football picks for next week. The lines and everything should be up now, so go make all your bets. And I'm very intrigued to see what the North Carolina line is. That is something we are very interested in seeing. I think UCF is going to be favored. I know it's kind of crazy. UCF might be favored, but do it on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. As always, UCF is 2-0. I'm pumped. I'm excited. All right, everybody. This has been Charge On, presented by FanDuel. We will see you next week.